Hi, good day. First of all, it's my first time to a YAZA forum, so I would take the opportunity to thank you very much for this great organization and for the fascinating content on the last 2 days. It was really nice. And especially Julian, very inspirational talk. Thanks a lot. Put a smile on my face, so it's really nice. So I would like to introduce to you a very fascinating subject, objectively speaking, of course. And it's the conservation of a living fossil, for true. I'll show it to you in a second. Okay, so in order to understand this creature, we'll have to go through its entire history, which is easy because it's really short. It was first discovered in 1940 in the Hula Valley in Israel, and then described as a new species to science in 1943 based on two adult individuals found and 2 tadpoles. And it was recognized as a new species known to science from the genus of the Discoglossus, which we have here in Europe as well. And then during 1955, the last individual was found during the drainage of the Hula Valley. It was a huge marsh and swamp area that was drained. And that was the last one found. Up until 1996, many surveys were conducted. Everybody looked for this frog. It was one of the most wanted on the IUCN list. None found. And officially in 1996, one of the first amphibian species to officially be declared as extinct from the world. Period. And we got really lucky. We got a second chance. You don't often get a second chance. In 2011, just by chance, one of the frogs was hopping on a dirt road right in front of the ranger's truck. Lucky for us. And he obviously understood what he found. And then they found some more individuals in that same area. And they did further research on the individuals that were found. And first of all, they found that, of course, they are the same frogs that were discovered in 1940. But it's even much more fascinating than that. It is actually a really brand new species, belonging to an extinct genus. It's the only living representative of its own genus in the world. And this was actually even published in Nature, and it now belongs to the genus Letonia. It's the only representative in the world. So in 2016, after a lot of efforts, the first field research was done on this frog in order to try and discover a bit about its life history and where it lives and behaves. And it's very difficult because it's a very cryptic animal. And that's the only research done on this frog so far in the life history. After that, there was attempts to try and breed, or not even breed, but keep this frog in captivity ex situ as tadpoles, because the authorities don't allow even to collect adult individuals, which makes sense because they're really scarce. And just about less than a year, we finally got one bunch of frogs that just were metamorphosed to try and raise, and to really try and start working and figuring out what these things are. So if I really need to point out some really key interesting facts and important facts about this frog, so I just chose these 4. This was last seen, these frogs were last seen in the fossil record 780,000 years ago. So this is quite amazing. It's really a living fossil. And it's the only member still to be. The only research done, the little research done, has found that this frog has amazing resilience to the chytrid fungus, to BD. It is prevalent, but the frog is not affected by this, so it's really interesting. And when you talk about endemic, this is endemic to a tiny area of 6 square kilometers. That's it. So this is really highly endemic. And to add to that, less than 10% of its natural habitat is now left to days, and most of it is actually in the form of isolated ponds, barely connected one to another, and because they're so small, they're all really affected by anthropogenic factors. So not very good. So when you think about all that, obviously, Exceedals should come to mind, because you have an extremely rare frog species in the wild, estimated about 150 to 200 adults, and that's just, you know, really throwing a number, but that's the number. The habitat is very vulnerable. It's a very unique amphibian. Speaking of all of amphibians that are, of course, critically endangered, and it's the most, let's say, the highest species that is in risk in the world now. So this one is also very unique. And it has much more of a life mystery than a life history. So you need to try and figure it out. So all that comes to the conclusion that you need, it really screams out help. It needs help. So why a zoo? Why from all places a zoo? So a bit about our zoo and why it fits. We have a very long-lasting partnership with the Israeli Nature and Park Authority that is responsible on all wildlife in Israel. And different kind of projects going on for a lot of years, starting from reintroduction of a totally extinct deer species back to Israel, keeping their breeding core and still reintroducing them and releasing them until this year also as well. We have the National Incubation Center for Raptors in our zoo. We work on different kind of projects, even if it's reinforcement of populations, keeping species as an ark in the zoo, as the Palestine Lodge. So we have lots of projects with this. We have a good partnership, and partnerships are really important. So, and what our zoo has to offer, and I really think this is important because I don't think our zoo is really that unique in this aspect. I guess it's the same in every other zoo here. So, and this is something we need to stress out to our partners. We have the best vets available, really, I think, especially in Israel. Think about it. Not a lot of veterinarians know how to deal with amphibians, snakes, wildlife. We have all that at the zoo. We have a lot of knowledge and experience working with amphibians. And one of the most important things as well is we have a great staff that really loves animals. And I guess it's in every zoo. They really love animals, and we're really committed to the animals themselves. And the main thing that I think that is important is that I think that as a zoo, we have a duty, and it's our great privilege to take care of our own species in our own country. And especially if they're endemic and critically endangered. So how to go to start a project like this? So first of all, we need to understand what we know and what we don't know. In this case, it's really simple. We really don't know almost anything. Okay, think about it. It's a really newly discovered species. So we do know that they're nocturnal, they're solitary. We know what the adults look like, what tadpoles look like. We know they have some kind of BD resilience. And we more or less got the male call figured out. But look what we don't know. A lot. Okay, there's more that is really unknown. And we need to try and figure out some of this stuff if we want to succeed in raising this special frog in captivity. So we decided that our goals will be, let's say, they're relatively humble for the start. These four main things. We want to understand what they eat. Basically, right? Really basic. What they like to eat. What kind of insects they eat. What are their limitations. And what is their feeding behavior. We wanted to understand what is their normal growth and size. How does it work? When they're 1 month old, what size are they supposed to be? Because when we find them in nature, when they find one in nature, we have no idea what's its age. We know its size, but we cannot deduce from that anything about how long it's been there. So we want to understand what is their normal size and weight growth. We want to understand what the optimal conditions of this frog should be. Temperature-wise, humidity, it needs water, doesn't need water, all this kind of stuff. So these are our goals for the start. In the meantime, it's going nice. This is a recording of probably a male, which is also very nice. It's probably a male, so it means that it's probably also close to sexual maturity, which is one of the very large questions. When does this happen if we want to start and even breed these animals? What we do is we monitor and record everything about this frog. What temperature it's been, what's the temperature during the day, during the night in the different terrariums, their humidity, the type of water we give them, what kind of water even, to try and understand if that could be a limiting factor when you deal with amphibians. The water and the water quality is very important. And we regularly actually measure them, size and both length and weight. So that's what we do. And we've had them, I forgot to say, but less than a year now. And fortunately, it's so far so good, because up until now, nobody has managed to keep, I told you that they started to try and raise them ex situ since 2017. The longest time someone in the university, they managed to keep a frog alive was 1 year and 4 months. That's the record to break. We're almost approaching the 1 year mark with nine individuals, so hopefully it will be good. And this is the plan. Okay, this is our conservation plan with the frog. We're working on 2 ways. First of all, ex situ. We want to understand how to raise these frogs, because we understand that we have something really unique, something very interesting that we need to preserve. And to do that, we have to have a viable population that we can work on and study ex situ. Okay, in order to do that, we need to breed them. And if we'll manage to achieve a viable population ex situ, we could safeguard, obviously, the species if something happens, God forbid, in the wild. We can reinforce the population in the wild, or even reintroduce a new population to a new area. And, of course, do research, which is really fascinating, and we really want to do it, but you can't do it because the population in the wild is so fragile and so small. And, of course, on the other hand, everything we do should serve in situ purpose. So all of our information that we gather will go to the Nature and Parks Authority in order to try and understand if they can manage the area itself better. If it's, vegetation-wise, planting different kind of plants, or taking care of the water, or know how to monitor the water, stuff like that. So we give them all the information. And hopefully we can locate and preserve more habitats that are suitable for this frog. So the point being, if I would like to address what John said this morning. What's the point of the talk, and why I wanted to introduce this subject? My take-home message is not, locate a really endangered species, or one that's even better, it's gone extinct and is a living fossil, and adopt that as a project for your zoo, because that's quite impossible. But the main thing is that there's a missing important word up at the headline. It's protecting our biodiversity. And that's, I think, my main point. We as a zoo should and do have a really strong and deep commitment to our local wildlife, first of all. Should have it. We have strong partnership. It's the most important thing to have. You can't do anything alone. And you need to think of a variety of nature conservation approaches to different problems. And that's what we do in our zoo. It's not just one thing, it's different things. And all of that has allowed us to really partner up in this really fascinating project, and hopefully, maybe in a few years, I could come here again and tell you all about the Hula painted frog, which I can't right now, but I hope you get the idea. So that's it. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Eric already got his hand up. No messing about here.
Thank you for that. It's a fantastic species, one of the 100 rarest species in the world. But you say it is fragile, and I have a different opinion. I think it's one of the most resilient species in the world. It has survived 780,000 years without nobody knowing. It gets lost for 50 years and nobody knowing. And so, in a sense, I think the protection of the habitat is the most important factor for the conservation of this species, which is very resilient.
That is absolutely true, and that's also a main conclusion here, that, and also as well as zoos, it's important. The most important part of conservation is the habitat. Because here we managed in Israel to destroy almost everything. I mean, the Hula Valley has been totally obliterated, and only 5% of it was saved as a small nature reserve. This frog was discovered in those 5% left. Nobody knew it was there for over 60 years, but because a small little portion of the habitat was left, we didn't even know that we were preserving the species. The species did its work alone. It can preserve itself. So really, the most important thing really is the habitat.
Thank you very much. Any other questions for the frogs? We all good? Right. Well, just a last round of applause for this talk and all the speakers. And I hope this session has given you some things to think about, but inspired you in what you can do in your zoos as well, and then in 2 years' time come and tell us all about it. So I'm going to hand over to Meryl, who's got a little bit of housekeeping before you go to the zoo.
Yes, it's a little bit of a repeat, but maybe some people were not in the room, and for those that are not checking the Hula app, but just some additional information on getting to the zoo. So there's buses leaving at 3:30. They will only leave at 3:30. I think there's 2 buses, but they all leave around the same time. If you miss it, you can of course make your own way to the zoo. But if you're on the bus, then you will also see a little bit of Ostrava and get some information about the city. So you don't want to miss that. Regarding the tours that you have signed up, or the bus, when you want to go wait for the bus, you do it in front of the hotel, and then you will be led to the place where the buses are, because they cannot park in front of the hotel. Regarding the tours at the zoo, when you arrive at the zoo, we will first take a picture, which is about like half an hour, 3/4 of an hour after we leave. And then there will be groups at the end, or you can gather the groups of the tours at the entry, so you don't need to go into the zoo yet. I'm not sure how they're going to assign which group you are, but make sure that you stay near the entrance to get to your tour. The other thing was bring the reusable cup from your goodie bag. And I think that's about it. The rest is all in the Hula app. So enjoy the visit. We can get to go outside.